Hello, kids. I've been seeing people around YouTube, some of the people who I follow within the horror type things I watch, and they're doing videos uh, about favorite horror sequels. You know, within a franchise, could be two movie, franchise or whatever. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's sequels to the original movie. Uh, some of your favorites. I'm not the ones I picked. Some of them are my favorites, and some of them are ones I want to highlight as the best, or not the best as much as my favorites or favorites uh, that may be overlooked. Maybe not. I don't know, but I want to start with uh, perhaps a surprise, and I want to keep these short. So this is supposed to be 20 sequels, and I got 20 sequels. I hope. uh, but the first one I'm going to choose is probably probably my favorite sequel in the series. The first movie is still the best, but I really love Child's Play 3. It's over to over the top, it's brutal, and it's silly. I mean, come on. Next one is perhaps the one I watched more often as a child than any of the other ones. The second would be Bride of Frankenstein. This one I'm choosing as Son of Frankenstein. Uh, I really enjoy this. It introduces uh, Bela Lugosi's best role, as far as I'm concerned, Igor. I it's too much of a classic, uh, and I know you know it's always said that movies go lesser. This is the third one. It still had the residue of the first two, and I think it's a strong entry in the series. Next one is the best sequel in this series is Damien Omen 2. Uh, Lance Henriksen's in it before I even knew who he was. Uh, yeah, it's a solid sequel. It's really hard hitting, and it works a lot better than the final conflict, which I also like. But uh, next one, we're going to Hammer time with Taste the Blood of Dracula, which honestly, I really honestly think I'm choosing this, but partially because I think it probably is my favorite of the sequels, but it's also the one I probably mostly saw. One other thing, I ended up getting a Blu-ray recently from HamiltonBook.com, and what I mentioned was the girl, the victim, isn't a victim. She is open to Dracula's, seduction, and that's a twist on the whole storyline there. Next one is Dr. Phibes Rises Again. Uh, One of the classic examples of it's lesser than the original. It's just more of this of the wackiness, but uh, I think it's a solid sequel. It's 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 not as good as the original. That's the main thing, but it's just fun to see, you know, Vinny Price doing the Phibes routine, and it's just a fun movie. Uh, Now the next one, I'll just say George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. It's my favorite in the entry technically, I think Night of the Living Dead is the best of the films. Uh, Dawn of the Dead is the most innovative and possibly the most transgressive. The Day of the Dead is just bleak, and it has some of the best movie lines in in movie history. What are you doing, Frankenstein, with my time? I run in this monkey farm, Frankenstein. The line. Next one is Son of Dracula. Now, let me give you an argument of why Lon Chaney Jr. was not miscast in this. He's not really the villain. He thinks he's the villain in the story. He actually does. But he's being punked by the woman that wants to be a vampire, dump him, make her man a vampire, and then they can live on, He's, Lon Chaney was known for doing the everyday, everyman type thing. And here's Dracula as the everyman being duped. In a way, it's sort of like a trope of film noir, Sam Diamond getting duped by the female. But yeah, I mean, he's not the villain, and he's sort of like an everyday type character, just kind of like Lon Chaney would play, just more, capes and all that type of fun stuff. Next one's arguably could be argued not to be a horror film, creature feature. I tend to blanket terms like horror to encompass some things like this, but Tremors 2, I might actually like it more than the first one, or it's about the equal. I really enjoyed it. Now, this has to be an unrated version because this is the one I watch. I have a DVD with both versions. I've never watched the R-rated version of it, but this is Bride of Reanimator, which is arguably almost as maybe even equal to the original. Next one. I think the first one is okay. It's very watchable, but I really, really love Subspecies 2. In fact, 2 and 3 were shot simultaneously together, just sort of like how they did the Lord of the Rings films a few years later. And 2 and 3 are really one movie that was cut in half. You can kind of tell it, but I really, really enjoy 2 a whole lot better. It's wonderfully over the top, very campy. It's possibly my favorite full moon movie. I mean, that's pretty bold. The next one, I'm just gonna say it. I don't like the first 2 Insidious movies. I just don't like them. I don't hate them. They don't do anything for me. First one was scarier than the second one, but I found the characters boring mostly. But the next one is my favorite in the series. Is Insidious 3. Different director, different setup, same concepts. I liked it a lot. I even like 4, but not as good as 3. A lot of, I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while, but see, I'm not a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I'm not really that much into the first 2. 3 is still my favorite. I hate it 4, but Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child, I really enjoy. I'd have to watch it again to exactly pinpoint, but I think it gets it right. Uh, Not as good as 3, but I think, I have to highlight, out of a series, I really don't have too many favorites. I have to highlight my second favorite. So that's what that is. Now this movie is controversial, and I don't understand why. I don't even understand why people hate it so much. Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. Uh, I think they released it overseas first, and a wave of hatred, came over here, and I went to see it thinking I was going to hate it and hoping for the best, I guess. But I was actually trying to not like it. I gave up pretty quick because it's better than the first one. I'm sorry, folks. It's just better. It had, has more interesting characters. I mean, there's even more characters. Uh, I, I I wrote a written review. Uh, if I think about it, I'll put it underneath uh, this video. But that's that. Uh, I had seen the first movie. It was they had their first premiere. Uh, no limousines or anything, but a movie theater that's about 10, 15 minutes away from me, and I got to I registered, got to see it for free, and filmmakers were there, and they said they had planned a trilogy, and I heard that there's going to be a third one coming up. Uh, I still prefer the first one, but the collection I thought was a pretty good, sequel. It's not. I don't know. It's maybe a little bit more polished, and I kind of like the grit. But yeah, there were supposed to be 3. I'm not sure, how that's gonna work out, especially at the end of the collection. It's kind of, I don't know if they're going to play into that or make up in another story, but they did plan 3 of them. Next one is possibly, I'll say it's an equal. It's definitely filmed differently, but Ginger Snaps 2. Uh, but Ginger Snaps movies, I like bunching up, the first 2 up together and saying, they're equal. So here's my list of favorite werewolf movies, but they're possibly like, if I want to bunch them up, the third, it could be third and fourth. I'm not really sure which one I really like. I love the ending of this, of 2. The ending is brilliant, and the character of Ghost is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, either one, you watch the first one, then watch this one. The third one's goofy fun, but the first 2 are, honestly essential, as far as I'm concerned. Next one, I have to give props to the homeboys, Michigan natives. Evil Dead 2. It seems like a cliche. I'm gonna have to. Oh, Evil Dead 2, of course. But yeah, when I went to see it, I went to see it alone. And the next day, I was hanging out with friends. Said, "You've got to see this movie." Next day, I dragged friends to go see the movie. The only other movie I had done that with was Reanimator. I saw Reanimator, hung out with the friends the next day, and dragged them to see Reanimator. Okay, now this movie is, as far as I'm concerned, is equal to the first, even though the surprise factor is gone. But it really, hit the nail, right on the head. As if you're going to have a sequel, it has to be this good, and that's Final Destination 2. You can watch these movies back to back and just call it one good movie. Next one is, I possibly like this more than the first one. I'm not sure. But 28 weeks later, I really enjoy it. Interesting concept. Moving on. The things, 2 things I really liked about Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and this next one is they acknowledged by using sort of alluding to maybe some tropes from Universal's reign with franchises. Uh, but both Freddy and Jason were acknowledged by the filmmakers as being classic, as kind of equal to these older characters, and that's one of the reasons why I like Jason. Plus, it's kind of unusual because it's very, very 80s. It's possibly the first movie that really went into the 80s kind of cheese that a lot of the younger people seem to like. And usually I don't like, but there are some movies that I do like that has that style, and this is one of them. Plus, it possibly has the hottest final girl in the entire series. Not necessarily the best, but very nice looking young woman. But final one. And I hope this is actually 20. I'll have to count this. Going back to Hammer, I have to. I'm not as familiar with the Frankenstein franchise as I am the Dracula. I really love Peter Cushing. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he's very underrated. He should have been utilized in all sorts of films, not just horror. But the second one in the series, Revenge of Frankenstein, is truthfully, I'm familiar enough to say this is. I think there's one movie I haven't seen, and I know I don't have it, but I think I have most of the movies. But Revenge of the Frankenstein, I think, is the one out of the ones I've seen that is the best. Well, that's it. Well, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this. Last 2 videos, including this one, I'm doing screen things, and I can't remember which side, but it has Glenn Strange, and I forgot the actress's name. I'm sorry, but she was the hunchback character, the nurse in House of Dracula. It's a behind-the-scenes, photo, and they're laughing and all that. That's my subscribe button. I hate to beg for it, but not too many people subscribe. But if you made it this far, maybe you'd be interested in other videos. Okay, until next time, this is Charles T. Cochran signing off. Stay safe.